Let's get the ball rolling.
That's right. Well, let's call the meeting to order, and we'll ask for a roll call as we welcome John Walker to our membership. And please, I will start with Joe, and we'll go to the meeting around the table.
Okay, I'm Joe Gansiger. I'm here.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
Give us a little bit of that.
I'm Joe Gansiger. Still, I'm pastor at First Congregation of the United Church of Christ in town. And I've lived here for 40 years. So.
Larry Atkinson, currently the chair of HRC, retired from Kishwaukee College as vice president of student services, and generally become a problem in the community. Lisa.
Lisa King, you know, we kind of met, I'm here on the HRC. I'm also on the township, also work for the university for program part chance. I'm just trying to do my part, contribute to the community. It's a real different world from where I grew up, but I kind of like it.
You know me, Mindy Franklin, Ethan's mom, is the head of the theater department at Kishwaukee College, retired now.
I'm Norton Gilbert. I'm a retired attorney. I was at the university as in-house counsel, and I've lived here about 4 years, more than that. And I'm the former chair of the longest serving member of the commission.
All right, well, I'll tell you who I am. I'm John Walker, live in the area close to 27 years, worked for UPS for 23 years. I know you don't know me. I deliver your packages, 545 Garden. And you deal with the soccer, because you know a lot of soccer. So
Right.
Hey, I know a lot of people, I know everybody. I know everybody. Like I said, it's not much to me. I helped do a lot of things in the community as far as kids, and always going to keep trying to do that. A couple of people told me this is something that I should look into, trying to do. And like Ms. King said, for me, I came from a totally different place than, and I'm assuming that most of you, I'm an inner city kid, I'm a grown man now. I see life and the world a little bit different now. I still got a lot of growing to do. However, I like to think my grandma and my mom put some values and some morals in me that can definitely, cover some of the things that we need to deal with here, but not just here, just basically, in the community, and I'm gonna go from there. I'm an intelligent man, I like to think, and I'm just not gonna stop here. You're gonna hear my name and see me do a lot more in the community. You guys just will have to wait and see.
Sounds wonderful.
Thanks. Bill.
City manager,
Scott Evans, Mr. Wardholm. Robert L., acting police chief, been here about 26 and a half years, going on 27 years. Lived in the community for the full time. My kids went to Cal High School. They're both grown adults, drive the house. So I'm excited about what the city has give us down the road. There's a lot of positive things. There's a lot of good communication that's going on right now, and we just all got to put our foot forward and keep an open mind and do what's best for the city.
Josh Bolt, Assistant City Manager, started August 17th, was with the DeKalb Police Department since March of 2011. Tenure here in town goes back to 2006 when I came here as an undergrad NIU student. Met my wife here at NIU, haven't really left the area for an extensive amount of time. I grew up by Galena, in a small town called Stockton, and find myself here today.
Well, welcome all, and these two characters. Everybody.
Jack and you've been talking. Case of Bell Management Analyst. Is it Gary Alexander? Yeah. IT Technology.
These are IT. Yes. Okay, let's move on to approval of the agenda. You should all have that. Everybody's got a copy. Yeah.
I was starting to see that the even though it's included in Bill's memo, we still should have the housing issues. The housing issues on the, as old business.
Oh, yes, yeah. I was going to note that at the end of the meeting that we needed to make sure that for next agenda, we have carrying forward that housing.
Mr. Chairman, can I real quick speak to that for 2 seconds? What would be the expectation of the commission for me to have for us for that next meeting, if we want to talk about the housing? Was there anything in particular you want to make sure I bring in regards to that?
Well, I don't know, did we ever get recommendations from Jacob Moss's?
We got a written letter, and I'll send that again to Jason, so he can send that out as part of the next packet.
Do we get the common lease too? When we do that?
We looked at it, it was from Evanston, and it turned out that it apparently was not an official one, it was a recommended one. But nonetheless, that's where we left off, is we have to relook at all that. And then there's, forgive me all, my mind is still not here, is it chapter 10, is the landlord tenant? Yeah, and we're reviewing that, Norman and I'm going to get back on that. So we'll see what we have and answer your question.
That's fine, I just want to know.
I have one thing I'd like to ask about, and I realize you're a busy person, so I mean, if I don't want you to expect you to drop everything and get to this. But I've been told anyway that 100 Properties has carried on, similar kinds of practices in other university towns here in Illinois, specifically in Bloomington, I think in Evanston, I'm not sure where else. But I would be curious to know how other communities such as ours has pursued some sort of judgment or some sort of complaint process against them.
Sure.
And I can speak to that tonight.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
If I could piggyback off that, they also, this I do know, they also have properties in West Lafayette, Indiana.
Yes,
They're kind of
yes,
doing the
yes,
same thing
that's
that we're
right.
doing in this area.
Yeah.
So this does.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I like to bring it back to the approval of the agenda. Was Norton trying to make an amendment to the agenda, or what?
Well, I think we just covered it, but,
Okay.
so,
Well, technically then, under old business, we just changed the agenda to be a number one, was just a review of the status of the housing.
yeah, maybe we should amend it so that,
Yeah.
so that it gets carried forward to.
Yeah, status of housing. Okay, and then number 2 becomes the update on Community and Human Relations Commission recs. All right, with that addition, all those in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chairman, we need a first and a second first. Nobody else.
I'll make that
Oh,
motion.
You're right. Okay,
I moved it and
and,
second, and behind
Okay.
that, second.
all right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor, aye. Okay, opposed, same sign. All right. Okay, we move on to approval of minutes. That was in our packet. This is the July 7th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Okay. And before we move on, we do have one letter or email we received for public participation, but I do want to acknowledge that at the July 7th meeting, I apparently, in responding to a question from the audience, indicated that Lisa was our only female on the commission and somehow left off Nadine. So we owe Nadine an apology for my oversight. She has been very helpful on recent endeavors as a newer member. She particularly helped start the general categorization of all the city's recommendations. so she is by no means to be omitted.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
could you not say we omitting?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it was mine, it was, I did it. Well, no one corrected me, so anyway, that's my me part. Anyway, so, yeah, we're,
Jason, I just know, I know we've already approved it, but,
If it's a quick grammatical thing, I'll gladly fix it, not a problem.
well, it says Mr. Norden motion. It's on the next to the last page.
I will fix that.
Well, if you're gonna be that way though, then my last name has a letter left out at the bottom, very, next to the last line on page 4. That doesn't,
Okay. I'll have those fixed, not a problem.
okay. All right.
Sorry, they were long minutes, so I just wanted.
Yes,
yes.
and thank you again. I'm so glad you're doing that. All right, well, let's move on then to the second agenda item, since we are under old business.
No, we gotta do public participation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see any, so I just,
Sorry, I'll read this briefly.
yeah, please.
This is from Mr. Herbert Rubin in the 5th Ward. Members of the HRC, I would like to thank the members of the HRC for their work on improving police-community relations and on focusing attention on racial and economic inequality. In addition, the city manager and the acting chief of police are to be commended for their administrative changes that they have made that increase the transparency of the police department. Most important are the rules to assure that appropriate sanctions are applied if and when a police officer fails to live up to the expected high standard of the department. It has been a good start, but more needs to be done. The list of abuses for which an officer can be disciplined has been posted on the police webpage, which is a good thing. That list reassures citizens that the police are aware of appropriate behaviors while reminding officers of the rules of what not to do. But the list omits the penalties for violating those rules. This omission needs to be rectified and the penalties specified lest it appear that there is no enforcement mechanism. Less progress has been made on matters that cannot be handled administratively. For instance, discussions are needed by the HRC about whether, how, and when to establish a citizen review board for the police. The HRC should start this process immediately, working in consultation with police and concerned citizen groups, leading to the recommendations to the City Council. Though there have been a handful of exceptions, overall the DeKalb Police Force has conducted itself with high standards, showing respect for all. DeKalb is not Portland, Chicago, Baltimore, or Kenosha. Still, tensions between the minority community and the police persist in our city. The HRC should examine the sources of these tensions through its own discussions, through garnering public comment, and through interviewing concerned parties to work out ways of improving the situation. These recommendations should then be presented to the council. Progress has been made, but there is still a way to go. The HRC has a major role to play and should put the concerns of police on police-citizen relations and racial tensions on the top of its agenda. There are citizens and citizen groups willing and able to help with the effort. While HRC should take the lead, combating racism, discrimination, and economic inequality must also involve the broader community. And that'll be in the minutes for.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on, old business, our second item, updates on the community and the HRC's recommendations. And we're pleased that Bill is here today. I think you gave us a background with the agenda to some of the activities that have gone on. And would you like to kind of review that first? Or?
If you don't mind, I'm certainly not going to go through all of the detail that I laid out here. That's more by way of reference, but I do agree with what Mr. Rubin said. Can everybody hear me all right? Getting a little better talking through a machine. But I'm still not where I want to be. But I do agree that we've made progress and we have much to do. And some of it is not simply a matter of departmental reorganization, policy change, and so forth. I think the biggest challenge we have is ever with us and will continue to be with us is how we are going to engage each other in trying to make for a real community, which is based on trust and familiarity, respect, all the things that we know you said it earlier, Grandma and Mother John, same in my family, we're taught certain things, and then life happens, and we get involved in our lives, and we maybe don't show that. Well, it's even more important now, because it takes more than just good values to combat long-standing and systemic kinds of discrimination and attitudes that lead to bullying, and I can tell you it's not something that I think I alone can do, or a police department can do, or the HRC can do, but we're all committed to doing something. And I want to join you, and if nothing else, the message I was trying to send here is that the more I wrote here, and at first I thought, oh, yeah, this is good, and this is good, and this is good, but I'm humbled by the fact that there's just so much to do. We've come a ways since the end of May, and the prompt for all this was the death of a man who was a victim of abuse. And what I'm happy about, and I will say this, and I throw it out then to you for conversation, is that we are not Cal Police Department, City of Calhoun are not caricatures of other places we've seen who've had a different approach. And I will, there's a little attaboy to the man sitting behind me. In the first minute, this is not exaggeration, that he was acting chief. His first act, and he didn't say, Bill, what would you think if I did this? His first act was to kneel with the people who were 150 people or so were along the curb outside here, and to say, I'd like to kneel with you together against police brutality and the kinds of things that have aroused people to be in the street today. And there was a little bit of a moment there, and we all did it, and we all looked at each other, and we did it for 9 minutes. And then we got up and we marched together. And I was about 10 paces behind the chief, who was marching right in the middle and talking. And so it went. And so it went for 3.5 to 4 months. And while the movement has moved mostly from the street into other ways, I think it's not going away. And it's a charge to us to, with the experience we have, 40 years, I have 50 years in August. I hate to say it, whatever, 27, 40, you know, we're all here, we're all of this community. So, gosh, I think we have a great chance to make this happen and just make it our life work. You do that every day. That's what you do. And it's not a job, it's what we do. And it's what I do, and it's what everybody here does. So, enough. I just want to take a couple more minutes to point out some things that you hadn't seen the last time we gathered, which I think are evidence of some further movement and conversation internally, which I throw up to you for more conversation here. We've talked about how can we be, the standards of conduct are heard referred to it, and there are some things we can do to outline. They are a conventional book, and there are some things that we can add. It's like when I have learned over the years, city managers writing about something, whether it's a law or whatever it is, we need to add more information because we should anticipate questions. It shouldn't just be, here's what I know, so here's what you want to know. It should be, here's what I know, and I've heard these questions, and here's some information you might need to provide. Accountability, body cams. We're just 2 weeks away from having the money to go out and buy our body cams for every sworn officer. It's about $150,000 a year for the next 3 years, or we can maybe stretch it to 5 years. But we're going to do it. We just completed trials with 3 different company versions. One's clearly superior to what we want, which is the kind of real, I guess, of life that the police officer would see or the camera would see, and how we record and report. So I'm pleased to say that. The posting of disciplinary records, I had mentioned that, that is going to happen here,
Over the next couple months.
yeah, before, around Thanksgiving. So we're going through, 4 years is what we're aiming for, that's what the statute requires, we're going to do that, and you'll get to see everything, including commendations, so the good and the bad, no expungement, disciplinary action, and so forth. No knock warrants, and Joe, you'd asked about this, I think the first time we met. We went back and searched, we went back 20-some years and couldn't find a no knock warrant. We don't like them, the state's attorney doesn't like them. We do work with other agencies at higher levels that use them from time to time. So what I pointed out is that they're helping us with a terrible crime. We're still going to want to make a call on that with the state's attorney. Whether these higher agencies can overrule that, I don't know. That would be our position administratively. Demilitarization, we have a vehicle. It's that people, some of you have seen it at Walmart and they roll it out. I don't know if we've used it, but it's there. And I don't know that I speak for Bob on this because there could be an occasion where to save a victim or somebody, you roll up. But it has no offensive capability. It has no protruding rifle, something that can shoot a propellant. But nevertheless, it's there, and I'll fess up, here it is, it's there, we can talk about it. It's not the highest priority, but we can do it.
And Bill, just a question there for a minute. Many of the community listed some other things about the concept of an overall demilitarization. I have no idea what our department, had we gotten other kind of offensive riot control weapons or things like that. I have no knowledge, but I know I keep getting asked that question.
I've seen our arsenal, frankly, I worry that we are nowhere near what we face every night, so I'm not going to say any more than that. I'll just leave it there. Hiring practices, I think that's something we're working on, and we're working on it, and we are listening. We hear one about members of the community in that process, which we haven't done consistently in the past, and so I made a commitment to that. The social worker, so she is not here tonight, but maybe one of the meetings coming up, we can bring her in and we can talk about what she's seeing, and she's been at work with us for a while now, and then under a contract now for about 2 months, and she's feeling her, we're feeling our way about occasions, circumstances in which she feels comfortable making, just ride along and so forth. So in addition to clients that she's seeing that we are generating, she's also getting a better idea of what we face night and day.
Yeah, and Bill, on that, I know some of the other communities in the country, their models and things. I think we're starting our idea off with the social worker having an office here in the department, and then we'll be called upon if someone's out of control and gets a call to go to a
And
household.
typically she rides during the day with people, but also
What I was getting is I couldn't tell to what degree our model was going to have, in the obvious, non-potential big violent situations, to what degree is the social worker going to try to ease the responsibility of an officer trying to handle these non-violent or whatever situations.
Well, we're going to, like I say, we're going to learn. So some people have said, let's put the social worker into the domestic call. That's not a good idea.
No, it's not.
That's a volatile, it's one of the most volatile
Yes.
situations that we've
Right.
So, but some of that is just is just uninformed. I mean, you don't know. Well, we're learning what her capabilities are and and she's learning what we do, what we face. And there's good dialogue back and forth, you know, hey, how do you do this and how about this? So I think I'll leave it to Bob that maybe one of the meetings coming up, bring her in and why don't you ask?
Yeah, I can add a few things, Bill, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, right now, she's only one person. So we have individuals in town that do have mental health and behavioral issues, and sometimes they take up a lot of our resources. So she is spending time now trying to bring those individuals in and do meetings, try to get them the help that they need. So she's not answering calls with us with the intention of handling those calls. She is there right now to handle and help those in need, and then the program hopefully will develop into something like that, which will be way down the road.
And we have one grant right now, as Bob is absolutely right. I think it's obvious it's one person that may be entitled. We'll expand that.
I just want to add, do you all have somebody that officers can see as well?
Yes. Yep. And we're actually, I was just talking to command staff, I think 2 weeks ago, we're trying to get somebody to actually come in here and be stationed during certain hours. But we definitely have individuals they can call, they can go to. We've had roll calls with individuals. I mean, they leave business cards, but you have to make that call. We're trying to set it up that we might have somebody here, let's say, once a week during certain hours. So if an officer wants to go in there quickly, they could. They can sit down and talk for a few minutes. But we just started talking internally about how we're going to do that.
If I could add, a lot of, I guess, comes from what I've seen on TV and then I would imagine, and my background is in counseling. I'm not looking for a job, trust me, I'm so good. But I think that sometimes when officers have been in an intense situation or they've been really abused the night before, I can't imagine that goes away when you go to work or when you see that guy again or that young lady again. So if there was somebody that they could talk to just to kind of process that, I think that would improve their personal processing on the inside and their interaction when they interact with the community. Because if not, I'm holding on to it. You know, you kick me, and I'm nice, right? I'm not going to kick you back.
Right.
But I'm going to always remember that you did kick me.
Right.
And maybe if I can give you the benefit of the doubt, I'm not, because I don't have to. But if I process that, I want to think about what's really going on. And it may help an officer to understand, perhaps, what the person is going through.
Right.
So,
It's a difficult thing for officers to reach out sometimes. So some officers feel more, they feel better by reaching out to a counselor. We do have officers that do speak with counselors and just to go through and to process some of these things. I think this year was the first year we put in our contract that if the officers go to a counselor and talk to them, they actually get a bonus. So we're trying to encourage them. But I mean, so right now it's not mandated, but it is encouraged, and we're doing the best we've done over the years of getting them in so they can talk to individuals.
That was a part of the negotiations that we did in December, January, February. It was an interest-based bargaining, which is it allowed both parties to open up a little bit more when it came to explaining the things that they felt they needed, whether they fit into a contract or not. So we grew out of that. I think that was a good idea. Quickly, just to run through. Farmville Reorganization, well, we're in that process now. We have, I think I attended, it was bad fiscal news. We got a little company that's pretty, and it's putting even more strain on the organization internally, but we are proceeding to reorganize the department. And, we are down 3 from actions taken in May, and right now I'm sitting on 2 more. It's something that even as recently as the July meeting said, if we do that, we have to be able to pay people who are going to do this work. So that and a couple firefighters and some others, we just don't have the money. And, I'll know a little bit more at the end of this month when we have 3 months of lagging revenue streams coming. So right now, here we are in September, but we're waiting on July's numbers, which in the history of COVID, it should be report one way or another. So you can show we're going up or we're going sideways. Just segue to housing for a minute, if I may, and Hunter property. There, I didn't say Hunter a lot, but you know what I'm saying, 6 and 7 and so forth. There's more I could say. Criminal housing management, that's another layer of pain in the form of mostly larger fines, maybe 5 times the minimum, if it would go up to 1,000, and recurrence, which is almost inevitable with Hunter, 1,500, and so it goes. And that eventually gets their attention. But that's still an ordinance violation. The council is considering something else this next Monday night. Thanks to our city attorney, and so we changed city attorney about a year ago. And the ones we have now are more experienced, I think, dealing with the Hunter properties of the world, and they're very familiar with them. In Chicago, and are aware of, and they've shared research that they've done, so we are familiar with what's happening also in other college towns, including Indiana. We had, and they like to leverage and push, which I like. You come into court and you don't expect it, and then all of a sudden you say, well, if you're going to do this, then we're going to take this. And what really hurts them, the only thing that hurts them is the pocketbook. The most pain in Hunter properties in our community, this is a aside, experience in the last year and a half, was when they were not able to charge rent after the fire at 808 Ridge, which put out about 40 different units. And they were always in a hurry to get that done. They were out there with rollers to go over holes in the wall, just to paint. No, that's not going to work. And so we held up to the code, and it took 6 months, and that was big. And that got us into a situation with them in our property, in our code enforcement function, to run out quite a number of citations. And so we did get them to a settlement, which allows us to impose a special service area on what's known as Ridge Brook, which is 808 Ridge and 832 and 835. Thank you.
I got that.
You got it.
Yeah, people buy
Thank you, John.
addresses and not that.
So, Nora knows as well, normally they would object to something like this, but it was part of the settlement, so what we'll be able to do mostly is outside, although a little bit inside, but we're going to be able finally to get some cameras on the place. We're going to be able to probably pay for all a good portion of a police officer, so we have surveillance every day. As you know, there is a gang presence in that complex, and it's a daily attention grabber for our police department. Now that's all reactive and enforcement, but it's something that's needed at that location because it is the location, that one block, half a block, that demands more of our time than any other place in the town. So it'll be up, and then there are some rules you have to follow with public hearings and that, but they've already agreed to a settlement, so they're not going to object to it. We have one other property in there, which is 912 Edgebrook, which is a city property, and we just passed the last hurdle with HUD to be able to take that down. So you're going to see 912 come down this year. We also did a settlement with the owner of Campus Cinema, and finally, I can say, today we just authorized the payment. We make a payment. The walls come tumbling down at Campus Cinema, and then we get a lien on the property, and they will not object to us getting a deed into a foreclosure. We come into ownership of the property, the building is down, the less than we would have paid if we had bought the property.
May I go back just for a minute to something earlier, which was this item 5,
Yes.
I think, about the embedded social worker.
Yep.
the contract with Van Center. I know the city is strapped for cash right now. I'm just curious, is the city paying for that?
They're paying for it.
They're paying for it. That's what I wanted to hear.
We,
That's what I wanted to hear.
we, looking forward, we'd like to get other partners like that, so
Sure.
we can expand on this program.
The reason I ask, and I don't want to take too much time on this, is that, Northwestern gets a heck of a lot of money from this community. And, as you know, and as they expand and as they acquire more and more, small-time operations, that takes more and more property off the tax rolls. And I think it's only fair, if they're going to build a huge recreation complex in competition with it right next to the Y, this is something we really need, and I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. We're pleased to. Last 2 points. So what are we doing beyond the department? We have a process in place. It is going underway now, which is to bring in a speaker, which we're doing in conjunction with NIU, which we feel is just one of a number of ways that we can create or to enhance what this particular author, Dr. Powell, calls a culture of belonging. And if you've read any of his work, that it's something he's been talking about, engaging people on for several decades. So that's a good thing. I've proposed a critical incident review board. So we've talked, this is something we'll have more conversation about. But we've talked about what we call citizen control. Well, we have actually citizen control now. You have sworn officers, and then they answer to it through chain of command to the chief, and the chief answers to the city manager, and the city manager answers to the council, elected officials, and so forth. What we don't have is what you have, the medicine, your airlines, and so forth. We don't have citizens who rub shoulders with people who are professionals in the field who are critiquing the technique and whatever it is that was part of the critical incident. I myself wouldn't feel qualified to sit in on that, except as someone who can listen and critique and ask questions. And so I've inched out something that I will say, and there's a full disclosure here, I have a son who is in internal affairs in the Mesa Police Department. And this is something they're piloting down there. I thought it was interesting and useful, and he had a lot of information to share with me. And I've been doing the internet searches for about a month and a half, looking, and there are lots of examples out there of what's happening. This is what I thought was a reasonable starting point, so I threw it out there for the conversation. The commission is welcome to take that and others. Finally, I just think we are few here, but there are so many in this community that I think that agree fundamentally with the idea of decency and respect, mutual respect, and I think that's what we're bound to try to do. And I appreciate this opportunity. I didn't mean to take over the agenda. I just thought this is something you want to see as a report card on where we are so far.
Well, we appreciate it very much, and obviously you and the rest of the city staff have been busy. On just this alone, let alone the other regular.
I will say, last thing, I kept saying this. There is nothing more important for us to do right now. I really truly believe that. And because when it's all done and we balance the budget and we got another company to come to town and all the rest of that, if we can't knit ourselves together better than we are, I feel we fail as these long-standing invested community members. I think
the work that you've done so far. I think this, I'm not naive enough to think, well, that's fixed, okay. we can go.
Yeah.
All right,
That'd be
yeah.
nice.
But I think these are tremendous steps in a very short time. And I also want to commend our acting chief and your staff. I live at 150 West Locust, so I don't have to go very far to do a Black Lives Matter demonstration. I just have to basically go to my backyard and here I am. And I've been to any number, and of course. And the restraint shown by yourself and by city staff, by the officers. I mean, I've seen people, make very abusive comments and show some provocative behavior and so forth, and your restraint has really modeled, I think, for a lot of people, how to respond in some very volatile situations, and I think it's really helped out on both sides. I mean, I also want to commend citizens that they've been, agitated and angry and understandably so, and reasonable at the same time. But I think this could have gone so much worse, and I'm very grateful that it has not.
Thank you.
Hey, if I could add, go ahead.
Well, if you look around the nation, you see what it can
Yeah.
become, and I think we're very lucky to have Bill and the chief with us, because that's and your staff, Jason.
Hey, I would like to say, I would be wrong if I didn't, let people know that Bill, I bug Bill a lot during the day when I'm working, I just get a little lonely. But, yeah, Bill definitely, what a lot of people I talk to, about some of the stuff that's happened, you kind of get I can understand how you feel, but it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, next agenda. But with Bill and, some of the police officers, I've met today and some I've known for, since I've been here, before they even were police officers, they have reached out, and when they heard that I was on this commission, they definitely wanted to honestly hear what I had to say, not just, something they can put in the paper and say, hey, I talked to John Walker, he's a black man in the Cal in the area, and, so everything is good. No, they actually reached out, texted me, offered me lunch, and just honestly sit down and honestly want to hear some of the negative things that I've been through as a black man. And dealing with something like this, it's, I don't say it's hard for me, but, there's a multitude of reasons why, I have to kind of listen to people and stand back and observe things, because with this, I have 3 jobs to do. I have a job as a black man who has 4 kids, a little girl, and 3, black young men that I'm raising. I have the job of being on this commissions to do what's fair for law enforcement, the city, and that's us as well. But the main job is to try to put those 2 together in one and come out with the best, situation that we could possibly provide for the community. So, and you're right in what you said, yes. But however, I would say, me growing up, law enforcement and police, and yes, they have taken a lot of abuse. And I'm never going to stand here or sit here or anywhere and talk bad about the police, because if something happens in my house, the first people I'm calling your house for you to however, police that's who they are. They're supposed to be better in all situations, because that's what they're trained for. I told Norman Cadell today, I can never be a police. I can never go to Afghanistan. I can never do any of that. I'm not tough enough. No, I'll tell you to your face, I'm not tough enough, And these guys are tough. And, these guys can leave the house not knowing that they're going to go back home to see their kids, their wife, their husbands, their family. So I commend the job they do, but like I said, this is what they sign up for, and they're supposed to endure some of the negative stuff they get, and they have to figure out. And I'm not just saying our police department, I'm saying everyone. And that's another thing. We kind of look at what's going on in the world as a whole, then we all want to put it in your town. Well, most of that stuff doesn't happen in our town. We had a couple incidents that was out of hand, but the Cal officers don't kill people. So I think, you know, and I love my community, and I love my black community, but, you know, I'm gonna be the voice of reason with everybody, because we can't just start tearing up, talking about defunding the police department, when half the people don't know what defunding the police department means. So we need to educate people on that, but as well as we have to say to people, like, we have to separate what's going on in the nation compared to what's going on at home, because one thing my grandmother did teach me, Bill, was you gotta take care of home before you can take care of everything else. So what I'm saying is, and I hope you can piggyback off this for me, as being a black woman, you know, we always gonna be put in a different situation more than most people when doing things, and we have to kind of watch, because we can't turn our back on our community, but after talking to you and listening to you talk, you're a real educated woman. I can already pick that up about you. So people have to understand, black people too have to understand that, you know, we want that, you know, for the community as well. So I'm never turning my back on the police or the community, but we have to figure out a way to gain a trust so that the police, when they pull up, get someone, pushing them, locking them up, it's not the first, you know, situation that, you know, a man takes. It needs to be, hey, what's your name? You play sports at the town? Oh, I'm gonna come see you play on, you know, Friday night. Who you guys playing against? Because right there, what that does is like, man, oh, the police care about it. You know, when you look in the six, I'm an ex-athlete, I don't want to get into all the honors. But what that does, because that happened to me, and what that does is, you know, when you're playing ball, you look up in the stands and you have the police not in his uniform. He's just out there to watch you play. Because you know what that does? If something does happen that they can't, that you guys can't get, guess we can give you some information that can help somebody. That kid that you say, hey, you play for the Cow? So, you know, I could talk all day here, and I'm not going to do that because my wife made dinner and I'm hungry, but I will say this to you guys, you know, and I'm not going to just, we all have to figure out, we do, all of us have to figure out a way to just bring all the communities together, and we just have to figure it out. And hey, like I told someone today, hey, that's $1 million question. I don't have any answers, but we have to figure it out. So I'm sorry for talking so much.
You know, to piggyback a little bit on your statement here, that was one of my original reasons for my question about the social worker, was I see that model allowing us in the future to free up more officers to be doing more of the direct neighborhood kind of patrol. And from what I've read of the successful community policing models, the more the officer can get to be known on a first name basis within a particular patrol neighborhood or whatever in the community, the preventative measure is just paid off multiple times of what that means. So obviously, at least personally, I'm not speaking for the commission, but I'm very much hopeful that the trial with the social worker will lead to identifying the kinds of calls, you know, you'll start getting them categorized, et cetera, and however it could start freeing up the officers to be able to spend more time in the neighborhoods. I just think that's a huge answer for us for the future. Anyway.
No, we have to agree with it. Another thing about it, the first couple of weeks was to order people out of their cars whenever they had the chance to do it. Obviously, if they're running traffic, they're not jumping out of their cars, but if they're able to, if they're assigned in a zone and it's possible to do that, to do it.
And not to start talking too much, but then we have to look at their side. I don't know if you guys been on the Hillcrest, Kimberly, Edinburgh area. That's a whole different ballgame. And these kids are totally different. And so they have to looking at it like, okay, yes, we want to do this, but now it's real, because now anything can jump off at any given time, because, you know, 23 years I've been working in that area. This is probably the worst I've ever seen it. And I'm almost sometimes afraid of certain things. So, yeah, I know he will do this because, you know, I got to met him earlier today, and I really think he's a good man, and I know, but the community has to understand that these days, these times over in that area, it's totally different than it ever has been in DeKalb. I'm just gonna let you guys know right now. And, you know, so there has to be a safer method, and I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is, but, you know, we kind of have to keep, you know, their lives, or, you know, just, you know, we have to just make sense of it. So I don't want them just jumping out to a 19-year-old guy these days, and it can end up wrong for them. So I want them to proceed with caution as well, sure.
Chief, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The ridge area, once you start hitting like Sleepy Hollow and that little area there, a lot of people, the parking restrictions over by Edgebrook and all that are
Right.
causing people to come and park their cars at, you know, in the net, because they can't park there on these streets. And that area of people, they're a little concerned about that, you know, when they've spoken to me about that. I live in that area, but they, you know, so they want to talk to me about that. And, you know, people are putting sticks in the street so that they don't have people parking there and coming and dropping off at 2, 3 in the morning, and then there's you know, another car waiting for them, the people to get out of the car. Like, is there anything that we're doing about that I could take that back to my...
Well, this is the first complaint I've heard of it. So, I don't, Josh,
I've
working on the
never
road,
heard that one either.
You're kidding,
No.
because they even told me that they had a...
I could fill in there, so this predates us,
Right.
Steve, but that's about a year ago, we were asked to look at 2 or 3 different areas. One was over at Linden, and one was Sleepy Hollow, and then over off of Lauren Drive, and that area west of any Linden. There's an older 60-ish subdivision, and then newer housing, some student housing, some townhouses, and so forth. And same thing, you go from the crime-free street restrictions, and then people in more dense housing are looking for places to park for their friends and so forth, and they keep moving further and further, and being willing to walk, and all of a sudden in front of your house there's no place for guests to park. So we looked at that Sleepy Hollow, and there were no changes, because at the time there were about as many people saying, no, let's keep it, to people saying, I got a problem. But you can bring it back, because the whole idea is that's open for conversation. It's, you know, it was proposed just before I started a couple of years ago, and the idea was we look at it after a year, and it was about what happened a year ago.
Because I had a police officer call me, and
We
he
can
was
do that.
saying that they were going to propose, like a sticker, you have somebody come...
A
Okay.
permit, but, so we did a poll, everybody got to fill out something, I believe, I wasn't part of it, but, you
I
know.
didn't get that.
So maybe it's time to do another, I mean, people move in and out, and it might be different.
There's an excellent, I can't think of the writer's name, there's an excellent essay, I think it was in the New Yorker not too long ago, by a black writer who talks about living in Brooklyn, actually living not too far from where I was a baby, but, and going to see his therapist on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. And in his neighborhood in Brooklyn, you know, there's a lot of old pizza boxes on the ground, and there's, you know, there's junk, and there's this, that, and so forth, and so on. And you never see that on the Upper East Side. But on the Upper East Side, there's a trash can every half a block. And in this particular part of Brooklyn, there aren't any. You can go for blocks, and there's nothing to throw anything away. And there are no other amenities either. I mean, there are no parks and so forth and so on. The only thing that they have a lot of in this particular part of Brooklyn is a lot of police. And that is the most, you know, they don't have a lot of resources in terms of, you know, things for people to do, ways for people to get ahead, things that would encourage people, that would give people opportunities. All they have are a lot of police cars, you know, and that's the most expensive kind of resource you can possibly commit. I mean, that costs a whole lot of money if you're going to have officers in a bad neighborhood 24/7. And so I think, you know, knocking down these properties as you proposed, and putting some real investment into that part of town is absolutely essential if we're really going to do anything.
Yeah.
So the grand plan there just is, once we get that building down and we control the property, then we have everything from Fanatico south to Hillcrest. And then the next target is the Hunter-owned strip center. And I can tell you there's something being discussed there.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Then there are some significant redevelopment which could create some jobs, not just pizza delivery, but nothing wrong with pizza boxes, but
No.
you know, but it doesn't pay much, and if you're a student and you're trying to, you know, you've got a couple part-time jobs, you're going to spend a lot of time. So anyway, and people who are part of families who are living there who don't have the means, real jobs that you can actually live on would be very nice. So we're looking at that. Now those properties aren't real deep. It's something that would fit in that L, if you will. We're working on that. I think taking nothing away from the spectacular industrial companies that we are happy to call our corporate residents now. But I think the redevelopment of that area is as important to the future of our community and how we connect as anything. I sincerely do. I'm not just saying that. So we're going to drive that. We're going to keep driving that. And there'll be other things coming back to the council. I promise to bring these to you for conversation, coincident with that, so you're not getting it as tomorrow's news. You're participating.
I will say this, hey, you're right, Bill, because I have 3 boys. One played for South Dakota State football, whatever. We went to every game, man, and put so many miles on my car. But the thing is, we drove in all these other towns, and you honestly can get a firm, you know, reflection of a town just by driving around down the street. And that right there, even when we were taking them on college visits, you can tell, like, nah, you're not going here. And, you know, that I think you make a lot of sense with that because, you know, hey, you get off the highway, you're driving straight down to town and turn on right on Hillcrest. Most people feel like, you know, you're not going to NIU just based on what, you know, we see now. So I think, yeah, I think you guys are doing well with that, but I think we honestly, we need to get that area cleaned up and, you know, kind of, I'm not saying take a break from downtown DeKalb, and I don't know if this is our business, that's someone else's business, but, you know, I honestly think that we have to figure out a way to definitely get that area cleaned up and make it a definite priority. You know, we honestly think that this town even has a shot of even, you know, making it.
Right.
I wanted to add 2 things. One was, I think Joe's example. My mother lived I grew up in Chicago, 35th and some other places. Then my mother moved to Orange County. And one of the things that she mentioned, she said, you know, they come and get the garbage. And then there's another truck to get the garbage that the garbage didn't pick up. And that was surprising to me because you grew up in Chicago, you know, the garbage man comes, get the garbage, and we had an accident incinerator and the garbage goes in. So either you get it or you don't. But in Orange County, right, it's so wonderful. If you have been to Orange County, it's pretty pristine, right? Also, when I lived in the residence hall, it reminded me of Robert Taylor's Public House. And people would say, oh man, that's like the projects. I said, well it is, but it's not. Because in the projects, if you throw some garbage down, it's there. In Grand South, if you throw garbage down, it's picked up. So you can throw it down Monday through Friday. As much as you throw it down, somebody's gonna pick it up. That's what happens sometimes in communities, right? We prioritize some communities and we don't prioritize other communities, which demonstrates to anybody that the standard is not consistent. So we care about these people over in River Mist, and God forbid there's some trash or something on their sidewalk, or there's a group of people that are rude and disruptive over there. But when they're on Hillcrest, which is next to the village and next to college students, well, the priority is not that great, right? Then we might make a little extra money because we get tickets and we get fines And so I agree, I think we do have to kind of adjust our mentality. I also think, I didn't see it in here, and I'm not assuming that it's not occurring, but I didn't see the connection between DeKalb and NIU in terms of policing.
Yeah.
And I know that there is a relationship. And so, I don't know if that violates somebody's code, but I think it probably shouldn't be understood. I think that we should say, it's a cliche, things understood need not be said. Well, that's not the best approach. The best approach is to say that we work together. And that way, I think citizens as well as students aren't surprised, whoever comes. Because if I get the university police, or I get the city of DeKalb police, I probably shouldn't notice a distinction. I shouldn't be able to say, well, the university people are nice, but then the DeKalb police officers, there probably shouldn't be that kind of a distinction. Not that there isn't and not that people aren't coming, but I think because of the location and proximity of the two police forces or departments, they can align some of the practices. Because ultimately, like many students become residents, and residents become students. So I think the more fluid it is, the better. Also, when I read about this training, I don't get the impression that implicit bias and all of those kinds of concepts are required. I get the impression that they're offered, officers can go, but there's also some other stuff.
They're required, by the police training. And I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. I tried to make that clear.
Okay.
And then there are some other layers that we're adding on. Just this is something we'd like you to participate in as well. But there's a, Bob can speak to this directly, but there is a requirement that every year these things you're participating in one of these 10 things. Every 4 months or something.
So is it possible for an officer to participate in some things and not other things? Like, is it possible for
You
the
can't-
officer and
Well,
not
say
have racial training?
there are 10 things, you can't participate in all of them in the course of a year, because there are certain essential things that do fall every year that you're expected to train on.
Okay, is one of those things implicit bias,
Yes.
also diversity? Are those required annually for every officer?
They're not annually. The state has guidelines you have to follow. We go well above those. Our officers are mandated to do at least one training a month, which is on computer, but I mean, it's done one a month. And we send officers to training. Right now, we're going through the right training, which is racial intelligence training and engagement.
Right.
We have a total of 6 more officers that need to get through it. We are now training the county in that training, so the officers from the county come here and train. But
We send people to be trained, so they're trained to train.
Yeah.
So then we also go to in-person trainings, which really slowed down with COVID. So that's why the online training is very important this year for us, because COVID really slowed down our training. But we are mandated, whether it's with COVID or without, to hit certain things every year, and that's every officer. I'm not the training guy, I just make sure I look at the numbers and make sure that we're getting that stuff.
Right.
So I don't have him here to speak exactly what we need each year. But whatever is required, we go well and beyond that. We are never just trying to hit the bottom. We are always trying to get above it.
Right, I get that. I get that. And I'm not questioning that you all aren't doing a fine job when it comes to training. What I'm concerned about as a person, particularly as a black woman, living in this community, and you can see that the numbers are changing with regard to the complexion of the people. And some of the behaviors are different than growing up in this nice, wonderful town, as your hometown initially. And I think that as the population changes, if the police department doesn't equip itself to interact effectively with the changing population, I think the situations are going to escalate. And so what I'm suggesting, I mean, a guy got shot in the parking lot over there, right? Let's not act like we don't live in DeKalb. So that's not everyday, ordinary DeKalb. And I'm from Chicago. I'm from growing up with people getting beat with bats and shot all the time. And that's not the DeKalb that I came to become a citizen in. And so I'm asking you this, not as an offense, not to say that, you know, somehow there's an underlying layer of racism in the police state. I'm not at all accusing. But I am saying that I think if you're not proactive and cultural training and implicit bias do not become a priority, it's not going to get better here. It's just not. It's not that you don't train to shoot the gun and you don't train to shine. If you don't make that an intentional focus, just look at other cities.
All right, no, we understand that, and not only is it the training important, it's holding guys accountable for it, because how many times do you go to training and you leave and you forget? So you need to take that training, you gotta come back here, and you need officers and sergeants that are holding people accountable, because you learn on the job. I learned how to talk to different individuals, whether they're suspect or victims, because of what worked in the, you know, before me and what didn't. So when you go back and you have these trainings and you come back, you need sergeants and other officers that are going to hold you accountable that you didn't treat that person right or you did this wrong for these reasons, so you can learn from your mistakes. So yes, the training is huge, but if our officers and our sergeants aren't in the community, aren't holding us accountable, we're still going to be in that same boat. So training is great. It's the life experiences of holding people accountable that is going to get us to where we want to be.
Well, all I want to say is all you have to do is look across the nation. I'm sure police officers all over this country are trained. But I would bet money that they're not trained with cultural diversity as a priority or implicit bias. Because if they were, these guys that are shooting these black men in particular, they wouldn't even be able to do it. How would they justify their own behavior?
I think, let me ask you if you think this is true. I think it's more than that. I think you could have a person get an A in training every module, implicit bias once a month.
Yep.
Great, I did it, look at me, and could get jammed up because of their lack of familiarity. They're not reaching out, they're not interacting. So my bias...
Or their implicit bias that has not been challenged.
Yes, so I agree with that. So here's this is our challenge as a department, as a city government. Well, all of us, but especially us, because we supposedly represent the law when we approach something, and we're supposed to be wise and so forth. We need to find ways where we can interact more regularly and more I don't want to use the word effective because it's like, check it and we're done. What I mean is compassionately. I think that's the word I'm looking for. And so we need to create those opportunities because we all have our worlds and they don't always interact and connect. So what I'm looking for, at least I'm absolutely open to suggestions. I've talked to Joe Mitchell about it, I've talked to a lot of people about it. Let's find ways. We can do it some ways for churches who've been doing this for forever in one way or another, fellowship group and so forth. But that hasn't been enough either, And as we become more diverse, how are we creating those opportunities, and how do we do that? I mean, it doesn't make sense for me to just get out of the car and just, hi, I'm the city manager, because that's what you do. So it's like anything else. It starts so you get comfortable with people or you don't. Or some people are not going to get comfortable with it. Let's keep trying, And I'll go anywhere and talk to anybody. I guess that's what I have to say. At any day of the week.
Hey, I got a question now. I'm totally naive to this. I don't know, how police officers, if they get recruited, they apply. I'm totally naive to that, situation and how that goes. But there's definitely a disparity between how many, African Americans the NIU police have compared to what the Cal have. I mean, it's almost, and it's like when I see a black officer from the Cal, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, So I guess I don't know why the Cal doesn't have more black officers. And like I said, I'm not saying no one's not hiring them. I would like to know, do officers have to apply? I'm sure they do, but do you also recruit, or just like, what
We recruit, the city HR department does most of that. We go to Northern, we go to Kish, we go to like some of the other schools that are known for law enforcement, Western, and a lot of times we'll try to recruit some of their students. Another conversation that started since I've been chief is we wanted to start targeting, when I say targeting recruitment for the black community in DeKalb, not other communities. So I wanted to go to the Black Student Union where we can set up a booth. Wanted to talk with Joe Mitchell and set something up. So we'd be trying to target, you know, young black men and women from our community to come here and work. But that would also go toward anybody. But we have not specifically gone to the Black Student Union and put a booth up and try to recruit, you know, Black Student Union. We try to recruit at Northern and whoever comes up to us.
Hey, now, and I can't, you know, just bash you guys and not say, you know, all this that I've read over, and I've read this before I go to bed, I read it every night. My wife says put it down, but I just want to, you know, I just want to make sure I understand. I will say this, and I will say to anybody, everything that I sit on the couch and I think about, why don't they do that? You guys have it in here. So I definitely applaud you guys for that, because this is showing that you guys honestly understand. And that's the first problem. Sometimes people don't want to understand. Like the body cam, I've been saying that. That's what they need, period. I mean, you put it, you know, posting a public discipline, but that's lovely, because we need to know who's keep making the, you know, same, you know, things, you know, the same offenses and all that, and no expungement. So definitely, you guys are going in the right direction. And I wouldn't be the man I am without saying, you know, I commend you on that, because it does show that you care and you want to get to the next level of this. So, man, I just say, you know, and, you know, it's not on you guys, this is what I told Bill one day, and just kind of piggyback off what you were saying. You know, if someone's racist within, from the jump, their childhood, it's almost, I don't care how many degrees a person has, or what they want to, you know, claim that they know, it's kind of hard to catch a racist, you know? I mean, you know, you can trick people until you get to where you need to go. So, I mean, we as a community and just as ordinary thinking people have to understand that, you know, the police can't catch, you know, every person that slides through the cracks, although it seems like a lot more people are sliding through these cracks. But, you know, me personally, I have to see it to believe it, because I don't know how much. I mean, I agree with you. It needs to be more, you know, training for the coaches and all that. But me personally, you know, it's kind of like you guys, you know, it's kind of just like being behind a door, trapped in a room without a key. You can't get out, because it's just kind of like, I honestly don't see it, you know, like how that could, you know, ever get fixed. Because I'm like, if you're coming from generations of, you know, prejudice and racism, it's just like, hey, your grandfather was racist and he was police, and now your father was racist and he was a police, and now you want to be a police, you're racist. And it just seems like, you know, with those kind of officers, you know, that's just how it happens. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I hope you guys can figure it out, and it's not your problem, it's all of our problem. So, and I'm not blaming anybody for that. It's just, you know, sometimes just how people were raised and what they came up with, and we can't always just put it on police, city, or whoever, because, you know, people didn't catch a racist before he got to be a police. I guess is what I want to say. I hope that doesn't sound naive or anything, but that's just exactly what I'm saying. Because I don't want to sit here and I told both these guys, I'm not ever just going to come to this and just start bashing the police, because that's not going to get anything done at all. You know, I want to help them, and I want to help, you know, my community. You know, I don't want my 10-year-old daughter bringing nobody over.
Well, since you mentioned your 10-year-old daughter, I mean, I would like to see this. If we're going to make, if the city is going to make a real commitment to trying to hire more black officers, then I hope there's an opportunity for candidates to meet with members of the black community, because recruiting to the Black Student Union and the Northern, that's great, and so forth. But if you're going to get people here coming here from out of town and so forth and so on, and all they're going to see is white officers or white city officials to find out and so forth and so on, I hope there's a chance that people have the chance to sit down and say, well, what's it going to be like for my kids here? You know, where do I get my hair cut? Can I get this? You know, what's this neighborhood like? Because otherwise, why come?
Hey, but you know, to piggyback on her son, and I know I was talking about him earlier, and yeah, we need a lot of black officers in the Cal on this PD, but however, now I know everyone doesn't know her son, Ethan Franklin, he's a basketball coach at Genoa High School. Guys like that, what you have here, are great in the community. White guys, some good white males are great in the community that look out for kids, you know, black kids. And he has some of the best relationships with black kids that I have to stand back, and just because of what I've seen him do, it brought, you know, tears to my eyes and made me love him as a man even more. So even though, yeah, we need black officers, but we just need good officers. You know? That's just what we need. Like, we need good people, and I want to clear something up. Just because we're saying Hillcrest, we're not saying black kids just don't hear it because white. No, I know, hey, this is my first time being in any type of city council, anything, and I know it's there. I want to make sure everything is correct. There's all kind of white, black, yellow, green kids on Hillcrest. It's just not black kids. But I just want to say, yeah, we do need more black hospitals. There's good white men out here who do a lot for the black community, and maybe we need to bring some of those guys up, and maybe, you know, instead of reaching out to a Joe Mitchell, which Joe Mitchell is fine, but, you know, I'm just saying, maybe not reach out to, you know, your son, who's a, you know, established basketball coach, and every black kid in the community loves him in this community, and maybe talk to guys like that, who can maybe, you know, sometimes it's not about 8 million degrees in this, and a degree in that, and a degree in this, and a degree in that. How about we just bring common sense people who are just good people to sit down and talk with some people, and maybe that would kind of get something in someone's head to be a good person.
I'd like to see more opportunities where we had some things set up where we could have discussions. I mean, so my son does that. You should know, Bill, that I brought black cinema to Kishwaukee College, and people were like, really? You're going to be a white woman teaching that? Yes, I am. It was very successful, and watching those films really helps young people see how this racism begins. Why can't we do things like that? Why can't we pick a film and invite, you know, people to
I think
come?
we have to do that all the time. And Bob is saying, I agree with him, we have to try to recruit, and try to recruit here in our hometown. But when we're recruiting, we also need to let people know what this profession is like, and how do we do that except to sit down, not even necessarily in uniform, but we're going to sit, we're going to talk, and we're going to talk into the night about what it's like, and let our hair down a little bit.
But
So that both sides are talking face to
yes,
face.
and it's not just for recruiting, it's for the community.
That's the point. So we talked about, I think it goes here, but I don't know how you structure it. You know, we're all social scientists, we can figure out how to structure anything, right? But the fact is, as long as you can leave a discussion and go back to who you know, something else, you're never going to be that connected. Of course, we all have to go home and we have responsibilities and so forth, but it's got to be enduring and regular. And that's how you get to know people. You're going to have your bad days and good days, and people get to see you, and oh, you've got a little bit of a temper, but you know, at least you know he's kind of right, but we need to work on him. But and we see that where we work, right? We work around people for 8 hours a day or more, and we get to know them. But we don't get to know each other if we're just doing our job. You know, if we're just reacting to a call, and if I'm writing a report, and you know, I'm doing my best, but how do we do more of that? And I don't know how you structure that in, but I'm all for it.
I can help you.
You go to, well, yeah, I'm open to it. I mean, you go to, it used to be when you went away to college, and we don't, who knows what that's going to be like anymore. But you went away, that first week, there were no classes, and you had to get to know the people in your dorm, and you know, and some people you didn't like, and you end up changing rooms and all that stuff. But boy, it doesn't take that long. You get to see what a person's like. You know, I'm not saying we all got to take public showers together and stuff, but I mean, the point is, you're breaking bread together. You're going to a sports event. You're doing stuff. You know, people have been working on that for generations, right? So we have the talent to figure this out. I just think we need to do more of that. And I'm just telling you, for the night, we're open to that. Doesn't mean we're gonna do silly stuff, you know, that trust thing where you have to fall on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
It's theater work, it's theater work.
There you go.
Complete
But
trust.
it's about trust.
Complete
How do you trust what you don't know? And how do you get to know somebody unless you can be familiar?
Yeah.
And open yourself a little bit to,
So do they still have officer friendly when I was?
Yeah.
Officer friendly walked around.
you said that the last time.
I wanted to be here, I wanted to be here for a minute.
Officer friendly, man, she walks, so if I'm at the store and I'm
Yeah.
short, officer friendly say, hey, I got you for
We
this.
still,
It's
we
not
still.
cool, right?
Yeah, yeah. We were doing the officer residence program. I don't know, do we have one still? Two.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
and I don't know, more of that, I don't know. But
Well, I'll tell you what NIU did when Grady came, and people, you know, there's some controversy about Grady, but I think he's a hell of an officer and a hell of a man. But what Grady did, minus the previous, I mean, everybody kind of Grady had the officers walk around, and he had them walk intentionally. One, is good exercise, and two, their interaction was not, I got a call and I'm here. Their interaction was, man, I see you every day. You know, how you doing? The last time I saw you had a cast on, are you better? Now, I'm sure that that's a challenge, and I'm sure officers will go like, oh my God, who wants to walk the beat? And it's cold, so you know, I'm my profession, I wouldn't be able to do it in the cold. I would not be the police. But I think that's the way to do it. I think the police officers go to stores, and they, you know, I see the NIU officers walk in the little store in the corner all the time. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You go like, damn, like, what's up? No, I'm just saying, I'm seeing you. I'm just saying hi. I think it's nothing for that to occur. That's free.
Yeah.
You could implement that tomorrow.
Here, it is one logistical issue though. So it's a little easier to do that on campus, believe it or not, because the campus is like an older city, right? There's just so many people in a small distance, you know, and hanging out and all that
Right.
stuff. Here, this is, and outside the campus, it's a suburb in a lot of places, but not everywhere. So there are some places where that's more effective than others, because you could walk, like Sleepy Hollow, you could walk that neighborhood, you know, all day long, you might see 3 people, but everybody
Right.
else is doing something else, right? That same geography or geographic area, you know, square feet, you can do that in front of Home Student Center and see hundreds and hundreds of people right now. So
When I drive past Rockies,
yeah.
I see the DeKalb police officers
You can do
sitting,
that there.
I see the police sitting in the car. But there's a crowd of people up there by the store gathered. So if I'm a woman walking and I want to go to the store, I see the police and I go, there's a police car. Well, I hope they're watching, because if something happens, damn, I hope they can come quick enough. It would be real different if the police were standing up there while those guys are smoking cigarettes and talking trash, is what I'm assuming that they're doing, because I think that's what my father's era did.
They're doing more than that.
Well, trust me, I'm not naive, I'm really just trying to make a point, right? But I think if there was an officer saying, hey guys, we don't need you hanging out, why do y'all hang out? And that's the conversation, right? Who are you, why are you always here? You're here every night, I always see you. That's going to create a particular kind of an environment where I'm going to feel more comfortable if I'm walking to the store, because I got
I
to
think generally, I agree with you in principle. We just have to find those moments where they'll work.
or those officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, okay, I'm gonna be honest, it just delivering over there and being over there, these kids, yeah, and staff would say, these kids are a little different. You know, they are like, you know, and like I said, I'm not gonna give everybody where I'm from, but like I said, born in Indianapolis, Indiana, being city boy to the heart. Came up like you probably came up this week, talking about I know somebody I play football with from there. So what I'm saying is, these police officers are kind of like, I understand how they feel, because they just can't come up to these kids over there these days and start a conversation like that, because I'm telling you, when I tell you, and I don't know if you understand this, I think you do or feel this, but it can go from 0 to 100 if you just say, hey, what are you doing here with these kids now? So yeah, you do somehow need to find their language. Even I haven't, and normally I'm good with that. You know, I'll be like, man, you don't come play ball for me. You don't want to? What's your mom's number? I'm gonna come pick you up. You're coming to play ball with me. And now I don't even feel, you know, and that's sad, because first, I'm a black man all day, and I'm proud of who I am and always have been and always will be. And I'm going to make change in this town. But right now, I just have to, with your help and their help, we have to figure it out, because it's sad for me to see, you know, kids in general, white or black, and the town just get tore up like this. And, you know, I'm not gonna get emotional with you guys, but, you know, I think about my kids, and I think about my daughter, and I think about my neighbor's friends, and I think about my neighbor's, you know, just family, and it kind of gets to me, and Bill knows it because we talked about it, and, you know, we just have to find a way to get the trust from the police and get, you know, all the communities to just somehow trust, and I know that's going to be a miracle, and I'm not going to act like it's not going to be hard because it is, but we have to figure it out.
We got to keep in perspective too. We have a brand new female black officer that's been here, I don't know how long now, 9 months?
Yeah, about that.
And she worked from Chicago, came from Chicago. She said she gets more disrespect here in the city of DeKalb going on calls than she did in the inner city of Chicago. So the abuse the officers are taking on a daily basis is not like it was 5, 6, 10 years ago. It's never been so bad. And then when you compare DeKalb to Northern, at times you got to remember the workloads. So our detectives might have 60 open cases, Northern detectives might have 2. So when you talk about trying to compare, and I understand where you're coming from completely,
Yeah, because
getting out there
they
and
support
talking.
you guys on those calls,
They
and
do.
I feel for you. And listen, let me be clear. I'm working currently with more students than I've ever worked for in my entire career. So I get it, right? And I get the black officer is more abused here than she ever was in Chicago. Black men are dying across the nation. I'm sorry she's abused here more than she was in Chicago. I grew up as a kid, all my whole life. Black men have not been getting killed like this. We are living under a different set of norms, period. So that means we either are going to be able to rise to the occasion and understand that it's hell and it's hard for everybody, or we're going to say, well, she's getting more abused here than she ever was.
I think you misunderstood what I was getting at. What I'm saying is this is a community problem. We got to come together. This isn't just one side. I mean, we need to have respect on both sides. The officers need to be treating the community with respect, and hopefully the community is then going to treat the officer with respect, because otherwise we're not going to be able to build those bridges. If we can't sit there and communicate and talk without treating people disrespectful on either side, it makes it much harder to come to a better place.
I get what you're saying. This is my point. Who trains citizens on how to interact with police? Because police are trained. Police are trained as a matter of profession. Who trains citizens? This is what you do. Black parents talk to their kids all the time. All the time. All the time. This is what you do if they stop you, if you do this. And they don't do that because there aren't black police officers. They do that because the police have a notorious reputation across this nation. Now, I think that we're saying the same thing. I get that this woman, this sister, that's what we say. This sister is being abused, right? I'm sorry for her. We're all being abused. And what I'm saying in clear language is we need to step up, particularly professionals, and get together with folks. And simple example, people don't like it. Black Muslims don't have any problem. When they're beating homeless people and burning them in Chicago quite recently, the guardian angels are out there. They don't have guns, they're not police officers. So what I'm saying is that I think we can come together and make some sense on how to connect with people in ways that allow them to understand, listen, we don't want problems. We don't want to cause, we don't want to just arrest y'all, right? That's not fun for us. Honestly, it can't be fun. You know, I mean, there's always that guy, but for the most part, it's not fun. But I think that has to be communicated if we're honest, right? If we're honest, and there are things we can do. Not every black guy or every poor white guy plays basketball, but they do play something. And they do love somebody. And unless they have some mental health issues, they are trying to live like the rest of us. And sometimes they're out there hustling. And sometimes they're just out there because they don't have a place to go or to do. And all I'm saying is it takes somebody. It may take that officer in residence plain clothes that smokes, maybe on the low, cigarettes. To go get some cigarettes and be like, man, hey, how y'all doing? Y'all new around here, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, man, no. I know. I have people in my family that are police officers. I have an uncle that got shot in the neck. In fact, he got shot in the neck with a little 22 and he didn't know he was even shot. And he's kind of a nice guy, so that's kind of surprising. But my point is, I think it is rough on both sides. But the police are professionals.
Gotta do better.
Citizens are not professionals. Nobody told me in 4th grade that you see the police other than officer friendly. That's our job. We have to do it. And we have to talk to people, period. What does the school say? What does the Y say? What does the store owner say? Do they like the people hanging out at the store? Does it bring them business? Can we talk to them as a city? Hey, we know you got a lot of people. Because if I go to Jewel, I can't hang out in front of Jewel. I can't bring a bunch of people and hang out in front of Jewel, go ahead and put a buy some cherries in about 20 minutes. Right? You can't do that. You can hang out at Rockies all day long.
Yeah.
That's all I'm just saying. And I say it, let me be clear, because I care about people, period. Black, white, Asian, biracial, doesn't matter to me. And I think we're capable of doing it. And I think we need to try some new stuff. And I don't think it costs a lot. And I think it's uncomfortable. And I think officers will be uncomfortable because, damn, I've been walking around like this and I gotta, yeah, man. If the outcome is that you have a closer community, a community that relates better to one another, and more than anything, on behalf of the police, you'll get people that'll tell you who's doing stuff. I don't want to say nothing. Because I know what it's like when it's peaceful over here. And my kids can walk up and down the street. And nobody wants their kids hurt or destroyed or abused. Talk to the people that are doing the census right now. Because they can tell you what this community looks like, because they walk around knocking on doors. And I know that because I got a friend that does it, and she's lucratively employed. Which does a lot of stuff with kids, so that's neither here nor there. But she is surprised at what she sees when she goes in some of these buildings. So it's, and you know, so it's a million ways to get information. I'm not a detective or nothing.
And I think, and honestly, I think, they do get blamed, the police get, blamed for, a lot of the issues that go on in our town. However, we need to look at, like you were, with some of the property management, and, so forth and so on. But yeah, and I see your point, you're the police, other police, even if they have horrible days, they ought to be better because they have the training and they just need to be better. But, and that's right to a point, but however, like I said, I do have friends and I know you guys are putting in the hours and I know, heck, I'm mad when I gotta do too much work. So, and at the end of the day, you're human. That's what people need to understand. But killing anybody, and you guys haven't done that, that's not negotiable. You don't do that. But I do understand you're human. And I do understand, like you would have caught me 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, defund the police, thinking in that area, I would have been like, forget the police. But now, I listen to my wife now, she's more intelligent than I am, of course. I get to, honestly look at the whole overall view of the whole situation. So, yeah, so I don't, Chief, I don't ever want you to think that I'm, discount you guys, your feelings, and, what you go through, because you guys do, like I said, something I couldn't do, but to piggyback off what, Ms. King said, is officer friendly. He was like an idol to, us, in the hood, supposedly, in the hood, and we just thought, man, officer friendly, he could do no wrong. Yeah. And I guess that's where, most of us come from when we say you guys just gotta be better. And that's all it comes from. It's never a personal thing or anything like that. It's just how we came up, we came up, like my uncles are, they hate the police, don't ever call them, call the fire department. I don't care who get killed, call the fire department. Don't call the police, but then we go to school and officer friendly. So, man, so I don't ever want you to think that, me personally, we're bashing anything you guys are doing because, like I said, you've reached out to me. Some of your officers have reached out to me, and I'm nobody. I just hopped on this board. And that right there tells me that you were trying to do the right thing right there and there. And I definitely can validate that, stand by you on that. So I just want to say, first and foremost, I appreciate that. But gotta get better.
Thank you. In the interest of being human, and I'm sure Officer Friendly would agree, we probably ought to try to wrap up for tonight. You need to get dinner, and I think some others do too.
May I say one more thing before we do, which is, maybe this is stupid, but it just occurred to me, and I just, if going back to what Bill was saying about familiarity, about getting to know each other, about creating a climate of trust and so forth and so on, you know, if we're talking about hanging out outside the Rockies and places like that and so forth and so on, you know, and maybe what we really need to do is be more conscientious about getting volunteers. Not just police, maybe it's not fair to have a police officer hang out there and get yelled at for 3 hours a night and so forth and hope somebody changes. Maybe what we really could use is a police officer and 2 old farts from the Knights of Columbus and a Rotarian and a couple of Kiwanians and whatever else, whatever service clubs we have, whatever community, you know, just to say, hi, how you doing? How are you?
I like that.
You know, I mean, that would share the responsibility, and I think it would overcome some of this distance out here.
I think so.
I like that, yes, sir.
And if I'm a brother or a sister standing in front of the store, I don't feel like I'm under surveillance from the police though. It's just like they see me, I see them.
Yes.
And what is it, like a standoff? You know, they make sure I don't do nothing, but I'm gonna be slick because I'm not gonna do it. Because while they watching me, I got this guy down here doing whatever needs to happen. And this is not a critique, so I don't want you to get the wrong impression. But that's the feel that it has. But if I went to the store and the police car either wasn't there or was an unmarked car, I didn't know. But I see some guys standing there. If somebody gets to the spot before I get there, I don't own the spot. Right? They're like, hey, how you doing? We just standing down here. What's the best spot you got? You know, you got some new pizza pop or something. You know, that makes crystal clear sense to me. It makes sense to me. And I don't know what the store owner says. I don't know if they like that business, meaning people hanging out or not. I've never talked to them. Have the city talked to them?
Yeah, we talk to him quite a bit, and we're in there, and when it gets to the point that he doesn't want people out there, he calls us. Our officers are up there, I mean, as you know, you see them up there all the time. I mean, they could be in their squad cars writing reports, they could be in there doing surveillance, they could be looking for somebody that's wanted, or they could be just lazy sitting in the car. I mean, it could be any of the above, but they do get out, they do talk to people, they can do it a lot more, and those are things we're trying to push. Because those are the things we definitely have heard over the last several months is we got to be engaged with the community. And not just, you know, when you feel comfortable, you got to be out there talking to people that are out there. I mean, once you build the trust with certain people in the community, other people will trust you because this person trusts you. I mean, so we know that. It's not easy. We're pushing. We're trying to do our best. We can do better, and we need other good ideas just like that. I mean, we're looking for those things. That's why this is great that we're actually talking. I mean, even as an HRC, we've done more communicating back and forth since I've been here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's enlightening for myself. Hopefully, it's enlightening for you. We're putting together ideas, and let's get it put together. I mean, this is our community.
Explorers. I think in Chicago they have explorers, like people who are interested in the police.
We have volunteers. An Explorer is more of a program, I think, where they go through an actual program. We have volunteers where you can volunteer your time to help, and then you come in and you learn about our police department, you learn about the community, stuff like that. But I think there's a difference between the two.
Well, you know, kids like groups, so if you give it a name,
Yep.
you know, and you give it a, I don't know, a badge or something, a sticker, not a badge.
Police Junior?
Yeah, that's just a way to draw, it's a way to draw people to you, because it's real hard for me to, you know, keep watching my dad or my cousin do bad stuff. Going like, hey man, I'm the thing, I'm the people, trying to be better, right? This is not it. And then if other institutions enforce that and reiterate that, it makes a difference. So the church, the school, the you know, I don't know about the synagogue or the club, I don't know what people do, but all the different groups, I mean, that's what makes a community, right?
Bill, didn't Kish have some of the students walk in the, I mean, didn't they do something?
Yeah,
like-
so that was part of the what's the program? you talked about?
Law enforcement program?
Law enforcement, but it's also
Yeah.
called, law enforcement, what's it called?
High school students?
Yeah, criminal justice, that's it. So, I was involved in starting that with Dave Damon.
Yeah.
We always had people who thought they might want to be part of that program, but they signed up to be sociology or health or something like that. And so we built that in. They actually got paid for it.
Okay.
and they didn't do a lot of it, but they kind of shadowed initially the office, and those were county deputies that were there at Kish. And then, we didn't want them walking around like tall and in charge, because that was just going to make for all kinds of problems intervening, but just basically being there to help. They would walk people out at night.
Right.
It's pretty dark, the lighting wasn't so
Yeah, I
great in
know.
the
I
parking
used to
lots
walk
there.
out.
Walk people out, just somebody walking, and they got a little t-shirt, polo shirts and no badges or anything.
What about something like that?
You want to-
And then the second year, so there's a 2-year program out there. The second
Yeah.
year, then they were doing more, kind of learning the profession, and in addition to the classes and so forth, participating in different things. So it was good. In fact, we had a guy who had showed up. He was so proud of his daughter at graduation. It was in the spring, and he had been drinking. Started early. This is a late morning graduation, and by the time he got through, he was really toasted. None of the officers went to respond to a call in the Malta area. There was a bad accident, so they left. And I'm looking around. I'm sitting on the dais, and this guy's jumping up with everybody who's talking to the board chair and everything. Yeah, you tell him, And I'm thinking, geez. So finally, I'm looking around. There's nobody there, and I look, and there's these two with the polo shirts and all that stuff, and I went, so they just went and sat next to the guy. How you doing? Pretty good. They learned, they eventually got the guy, hey, let's walk out, he wants some water or something like that.
Well, maybe we can work with them.
Well, maybe, but it certainly worked in that environment, so you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great discussion, some good ideas mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for the time. It takes a lot of discussion, and if we can emerge with an idea or two, that's great. So thank you again, and for next time, we'll get the
Housing.
update on housing together, and I'll work with you on the agendas, stuff, and if we need any background information on it. And then for any more updates with our police community relations and the different recommendations, obviously, Bill, if you have something new you want to bring, great. The other idea I was thinking was in reviewing your document that you gave us for tonight. It looks like this critical incident review board is a next sort of thought, and I don't know if we all at HRC can help, or if you just want a sounding board.
Well, you can, and that was a week ago or whatever it was on a Saturday night when I'm trying to think. I pushed myself to try to distill a lot of things, and so it's raw, it's rough, and we haven't had a lot of time to talk about it, but I would like your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Well, delve in the details, right? But I think we're trying to embrace over here.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. With that, entertain a motion to adjourn. It has been moved. Is there a second? There is a second from Lisa. All in favor, please rise.